So when we get started here, what we want to do is start by making your divot. Now, go easy, right? You don't want to just grind away. You don't know how fast the wood's going to come off. So take it easy, take it off, look at it, and you're looking at the thickness from the divot you made to the center line of the blade. And then you're going to flip it over and you're going to try to recreate that on the other side. It won't be perfect, and it doesn't need to be, because you're going to walk up, you're going to sneak up on it a little bit at a time on each side. Now what you're looking for is that you don't grind out through the end of the butt of the handle. You want to leave a little bit of meat there at the bottom and go on each side so that you end up with a divot that's equally tall on the left side and the right side, and equally thick on the left side and the right side. When I say thickness, I'm talking about what's left of the handle, the bottom of the divot to the center of the knife spine. Stop often and look at it. You want to make sure from front to back that the thickness is about the same, or whatever you're going for. But just sneak up on it. Don't feel like you got to grind it all out in one shot. That's the last thing you want to do. Check that it's right, front, back. And you're going to go to the top. Do the same thing. Don't come out of the top, and don't grind through the middle of the palm swell. Just start off with a little divot, flip it over, make another little divot. And try to make the divots the same. And you'll notice here that left to right, they're not perfect yet. We'll keep working on that. Easy does it. Now we're getting somewhere. Getting real close. The thickness isn't perfect left to right, and the palm swell center isn't exactly perfect, but it's close. Look at it again. Plan what you're going to take off before you put the knife on the wheel. Looking pretty good. I'm just going to keep going a little bit. Now we need to bring those shoulders down that we created, because we don't want those big shoulders sticking out like that. That serve no purpose. So we're going to bring those down so that the top half of our handle has a nice gentle sweep. That we're going to work that shoulder down, and we want a straight line. We're going to start things by bringing a straight line from the front of the handle to where it slopes up to the palm swell. Gently, just touch it to the wheel. Take that wood off. And try to do it on the other side and then the back side. Gently walking it up that wheel, not even any pressure. Look at the accuracy here. You want a straight line. When you look at it from the spine, the top of the scale should have a straight line of the same thickness that goes back until it's broken by the palm swell. That's how you're going to get that nice, smooth ski slope front from the palm swell up to the top of the handle where the blade comes out of it. You also need to make sure that you come in and you make those pins flat. That's why you see me putting the handle flat against the belt. Because we want to make sure that those pins are ground down nice and flat and flush. We don't want any goofy angles in our handle. We're going to make a little flat spot where each of the pins are, and especially down at the bottom. But the pin should flow with the handle. You You don't want to be able to run your finger across the handle and feel the pin in any way, and it shouldn't be anything but flat, or else it's going to pick up light weird and look crazy. Look for symmetry, symmetry, symmetry. Now we're going to step up to a 120 grit belt. Same thing. Dress those pins up. You got to get rid of those 60 grit scratches. So the first thing we're going to do is grind those pins and get 120 grit scratches in it. Then we're going to go after the heel and the spine of the blade. We got to get rid of anywhere where there's 60 grit scratches. Onto the 220 grit belt. Now we want to get rid of any 120 grit scratches in the pins. And now we can go after contouring the handle, getting rid of any sharp angles. We're going to round off all of the corners now. See that? Nice and smooth. We don't want any right angles on this handle at all. We're going to blend those corners right out. The reason we didn't do this at 120 or 60 is because it takes off too much. 120 on a slack belt like that is a very gentle way to remove material. And you can see me walking it back and forth like a half moon shape because I'm following the contour of the handle. The one thing you never want to do is just lay something on a belt and let it sit, because you're going to cut a ditch. So just put it on and kiss it, put it on and kiss it, rocking it, always keeping it moving, because what we're doing is blending. Blending, 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 blending. Look for any flat spots you made. Look for any errant lines, anything that sticks out that shouldn't be there. We'll make it perfect in hand sanding, but the idea of having a grinder in the first place is to remove the bulk of the stuff that you don't want to spend hours sanding out by hand, especially because there's a steel pin in there. And just like this, yeah, we could hand sand the spine of that blade, but right now we want to get those 120 grit scratches out. If we can end up with 220 grit scratches in the metal everywhere and make sure the scratches are all in a line, it's going to make our life infinitely better when it comes to hand sanding. Now you see I'm going back to a 120 grit belt, and that's because we did not do the face of the tang. That's still got 60 grit scratches in it. So on a small wheel, again, never stop moving because you'll make a divot. So you run that back and forth, get rid of all the 60 grit scratches and replace them with 120 grit scratches. Then change the belt and get rid of the 120 grit scratches and make it all 220. 220 is where things start to get a little bit shiny. And it starts to look like grain in the metal, if there was such a thing. It starts to look like grain in the metal versus deep scratches. We will take that to 600 hand sanding, but you do not want to hand sand out 120 grit scratches. 220 is not bad. 60 is awesome. Right now we want to make that choil nice and smooth and get rid of the angle on each side of it, so that no matter how it rubs your finger, it's smooth. We're going to break the corners off of that. The choil is where the blade comes down from the handle. And what we did was we chamfered the corners off each side and blended it. And now we're going back after the handle and making it all silky smooth. Looks pretty good. Left, right, up, down, back, front. What we're looking for is even. The butt could use a little bit of work, so we're going to polish that up. That might have got a little hot on the wheel and turned black, so we're going to take that off. There we go. Now we're done. Back to the handle. Let's see if I can get a little bit of light on here. might be too much light. Yeah, forget that. So here's our handle. Notice that it pinches in here and pinches in here to a nice long straight taper with a palm swell. It's become a very elegant handle. And I know the lens on, I'm recording this on an iPhone, so the lens is causing some kind of distortion. I promise I'm not this fat. It's the front facing camera. Yeah, I'm not as slim and trim as I was a long time ago, but this camera is making everything look a lot bigger because it's a front facing camera with a wide angle lens. But the idea is that this handle is now very comfortable in the hand. And also by removing a lot of that weight, not only is it pretty, but the knife is just a little bit blade heavy. Notice that? So it'll dance on my thumb, but it always wants to lay down on the board. Always wants to lay down on the board, right? Just very slightly. It's not much, right? I mean, it'll hang right there on my one finger. See that? It's just about balanced at the front of the handle scales, but the scallop on the blade is a little bit posterior to that. Now when you're holding it, there's more weight in the handle. It feels like it feels handle heavy, which makes for a very quick knife. But it's not, in reality, it's pretty well balanced, so that when you're pinch gripping it, right, makes for a very fast, very controllable knife. Back to the handle. So this shape I really like because it's very comfortable, it's very elegant, it looks good in the knife block, it's very pleasing to the eye. But it's not done. Like if you look closely, the swell on this side is not exactly the same as the swell on this side. And if you try chasing that on the grinder, you're gonna eat your handle to pieces. The more time you spend making knives, the more you're gonna realize that there is no replacement for hand sanding. Got a storm coming in. There's no replacement for hand work, okay? Machines are fast. They do a pretty good job, but this is not finished, right? If this was my first knife, I'd be real proud of it, right? But looking at it now, I know that's not done. That's not acceptable. I mean, it looks pretty good, but no, it needs to be perfect. So what I'll do is I'll chuck this up and we'll hand sand it, and we will remove just a little bit of wood here to make this contour the same as this contour, and this contour the same as this contour. And we'll look at it really closely and make sure that there's no weird lines, nothing catches light funny. This is a big area you need to look at, because even though it's on the bottom of the handle, when you're coming in here on the belt, you notice that I was chamfering. The thunder's not going to cooperate, is it? I was putting a chamfer. I was breaking the edge on that choil so that no matter how you hold this knife, it can ride your finger and it just feels smooth. There's no sharp edges. The spine's been rounded. Everything about this knife is friendly. Going to go in there and hand sand away these little imperfections that you can see. See those? See how the angle is not perfectly the same? Okay? Don't shoot for perfect off of the grinder. You're going to chase yourself in circles and you're going to ruin a lot of stuff. Let it do the bulk of the work to speed your life up and make it, speed the process up and make your life easier. Don't try to do finished work on your grinder, okay? It's false economy. You're going to ruin more stuff than you save. All right, so with that, on to hand sanding.